Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Panther Den podcast. I'm joined here again with J-Dub and Ethan. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I am very passionate about and really like really like to talk about. So today's topic is the ATF. The ATF is known as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. That is their full name, and they reign over all of that. They regulate alcohol, they regulate tobacco, they regulate firearms and explosives. And if you know anything about the Second Amendment, you know that it's illegal to regulate firearms. But the ATF has been doing this for over 49 years. So thanks again for Daddy Government governing us harder.
And they always, and the thing with them too is like it's not just a set rules that they have; they change them on the fly.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
almost no backlash either. There's nobody.
There's
not backlash, but I feel like it just stuff gets passed
Yeah,
a lot
there's no
easier than
pushback.
a lot of other
I mean-
things, other aspects of government. It's just passed.
I mean, the government's basically just horrible now. But I mean, they don't. I mean, we have the Congress has to vote on stuff, and they get in fights all the time.
yeah,
But I mean, they just do whatever the hell they want. The ATF.
Pretty
Most of
much.
these. I mean, these, and you think about like as much as I hate like most politicians, or like when it comes to the president. I mean, the most the president's going to be in there is 8 years, and everyone always. And I think that the president needs to be. I mean, those are the people you need to worry about. But then you go to the ATF, the CIA, all these places. They don't get elected; they get hired, and
Mhm.
I mean,
yeah.
The only person that gets like appointed is the head.
yeah.
And there hasn't been a head of the ATF in years.
Yeah.
They're
Wonder
literally-
why.
Yeah. None of them can be appointed without going through Congress.
I doubt they even have the budget to pay somebody at the head of the ATF.
Yeah,
like,
their
their
budget has
budget's
been cut
nothing.
down.
Well, wasn't there a recent?
So many
Wasn't there
times.
a recent one they were trying to get in?
There were like two recent ones that they were trying to
What
get in.
budget increases or something?
No, head of the
heads.
ATF.
Oh, heads of the ATF.
Well, because there's that one I can't remember his name, but he looked like a little prick.
Yeah, and he was actually at where we're gonna talk about. He was at Waco.
Oh yeah,
There was literally pictures of him standing in the ashes of Waco.
What's his name? I can't.
But another guy was trying to be appointed as the head of the ATF more recently, and I don't think he was even approved.
I mean, they're just. I mean, I'm sure that they like appoint people all the time, and you never hear anything about it because it probably just goes without any like I mean, it's just
backlash,
any
or
backlash or
any
anything.
any
But-
kind of media around it. Honestly,
But anytime it's the ATF, and I have to see I have to like it's not the mainstream media that's posting this. It's like you have to dig for this, or you have to already be following certain people who are going to be saying this type of stuff. But anytime it's like ATF people, like I mean, they're when they're talking in Congress, I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah,
And
they
there's-
don't hardly know what they're talking
And
about.
I mean,
Yeah.
and this is not necessarily saying that it's always the Democrats throwing them softball questions. I'm sure if it's more of a Republican right leaning person, I'm sure the Republicans would throw them softball questions. And it's like they get softball questions, and then when they ask them questions that they need answered, they don't answer them. They just kind of dodge it. And it's
Yeah.
just they always just seem they're so corrupt, and I don't know.
They're so very disorganized in everything they do.
Yeah.
All the documents that they have, there's too many of them to even count, really. Like
and aren't they all paper documents posted on a wall? Basically, I mean, like
a lot of
quite
the
literally.
a
Posted
lot
on
of the
wall.
older ones, especially. But there's a database that they have, but I'm sure that
Right.
they still have a ton
the
of
wall.
Yeah, like there was literally a quote. I'm going to read it right here. Quote, "The Bureau currently gets 2 million new records a month. Documents line the hallways and are stacked head high in offices throughout the tracing center." That's literally in just the tracing center for tracing weapons. 2 million documents a month. That is insane. I don't know. I don't even know how to take that, honestly.
they're still using documents, like paper documents.
Well,
That's one of their first problems.
they make all the gun stores send them paper documents of what they sold,
Oh, that's right.
of
Okay.
who they sold it to, what they sold, how much it was, like everything,
Details.
serial numbers.
And as soon as Red Dawn starts,
It's all out the window.
Yeah.
in Red Dawn, they go to they get all the people who have guns.
Yeah.
I know it's a movie, but it's a really good movie. Not the new one, the old one. Don't even bring that one up. But the old one, they get all their records and people who bought guns, and then they go and put those people away.
Mm-hmm. And they confiscate the guns.
I know it's a movie, but it's there, and you don't think that they're obviously using it, the government, and then who's to say, so obviously if somebody comes in, another governing body, they're going to use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it shouldn't matter whether it's, they know we know we have their cars and stuff, but it shouldn't matter. If you want to buy a gun, go buy the gun. You don't need to know why. There's no reason for you to know why I own this gun. There's no reason for you to know why I wanted to buy this car. If I have the means to, I should be able to buy a tank and the ammo for it.
Exactly.
And
the only thing I'm not opposed to is background checks, like pretty surface level background checks. If they weren't checked into a mental hospital in
in the
last year
in the
or
last 20 days.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's like
fine
the
with
basic
it.
stuff, and I think that should be enforced, if anything, just because that's like common knowledge. You don't give a kid fire and expect them to know what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not. That's the extent that I think it should be kind of regulated to. But beyond that is kind of a little gray, more gray to me.
And most of the time, I've bought a bunch of guns, and I've been with my dad before I was old enough. I was with my dad when he bought a bunch of guns.
Mm-hmm.
And and I guess it depends on what state you're in, but most of the time I've lived in pretty right-leaning states. It doesn't take that long. You want the gun, you do it. It takes barely any time.
The background check?
Yeah.
Yeah, I walked in when I got my AR recently. It took like 10 minutes, maybe. I was just looking around at the gun store while he did it. It wasn't like a 10-day extensive thing, and that's kind of all it should be.
Yeah.
That's all it needs to be, I guess.
Okay, so I think we're going to head into the main part of this episode, and today we're going to be talking about ATF, of course, but the specific part of the ATF we're going to be talking about is the Waco tragedy. And some of you may know about it because of the Netflix documentary that came out, but I'm sure not that many of you know what the David Indians believed or what actually happened in there and anything like that. You just know pretty much the bare minimum almost. So we're going to go over a lot of that stuff today. And this might be a longer episode, but deal with it. We're going to start with what the David Indians believed and who they really were. First, I want to go back and I want to say this is a branch David Indian. This is a type of belief that is basically a spinoff of the Seventh-day Adventists. And if you don't know, this is they're a form of Christianity. They read the Bible just like I do. And the original creator of the Branch David Indians was named Victor Houteff, something like that. Victor Houteff.
Mm-hmm.
And he believed that, and the reason that he created them was because that he believed the original Seventh-day Adventists succumbed to worldly possessions. So he went off and made his own, pretty much made his own religion that was just based off of a thousand other ones put together. Really, it all comes together when a man named Vernon Howell joins and rises up to be the leader of this group. And you might be asking, who the heck is Vernon Howell? He changed his name to David Koresh. The reason he did that was because of King David and the Persian king Cyrus. Anyway,
he established the House of David, and I think it was because of the king and or whatever, and so he changed his name to because he made the House David of his special people for his special people, so he changed his name to David so it would match it, I guess.
So kind of like a power trip in a way.
Yeah.
Wow, what a freak!
He
lived it. He lived it.
He tried to legally change his name, I think, in 1990, and then he got it.
Okay, before we go any further, I really want to say I'm not siding with the Davidians. I'm not siding with the ATF. Either way, this is just kind of like our views of it and what we've found. The
and
reason
that goes for all of us, I think, too.
Yeah.
Just to verbally clarify.
Yeah.
That goes for all of us here.
So the reason that they lived in like the middle of nowhere in Waco, Texas, was because they believed that they needed to be away from the modern society because they thought it was gosh.
It's too materialistic.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be materialistic. Right? Is basically it.
Yeah. Well, see, so what I've found is basically and this is not David Koresh. Like, I mean, he followed it, but Victor, he basically founded it on the prophecy of the apocalypse, basically the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it was I don't know for sure, but I think when the siege was starting, everyone, because there was a lot of people that lived there, but I think before it started, it probably happened before, but I think people started moving in there because he married, I mean, he had like 14 wives or something. Basically, he made it to where every other man in the, whatever you would call it,
the compound
shouldn't be having sex.
Yeah.
And basically he was basically like the only one that could, and he told them that God told him that he was the ones that was supposed to father all the children.
Yeah, mm-hmm. He believed that God was speaking directly to him.
And eventually he said that he was the second, he was
like the Messiah.
He was the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
He said that he was the lamb mentioned in the Revelations with Christ, mm-hmm. because okay, we'll get into that in a minute though. But like you said, that he made all the other men celibate, or made them stay celibate, because he believed that his offsprings would eventually rule the world. That's literally what he believed. And it was their whole like belief system is very strange and almost disturbs me. The biggest belief that they had, though, was that David Koresh was the only one that could open the 7 seals mentioned in the book of Revelations. And they thought that the seals secured a document, and their opening makes the second coming of Christ and the start of the apocalypse happen. So he thought that God made him specifically to open the 7 seals. And that's why he called himself the Lamb of God. And the Lamb was mentioned with Jesus in the book of Revelations, along with the 7 seals. He was the only one that thought he knew how to open the 7 seals. So while the siege was going on, he was trying to write a manuscript of what he thought what he thought would happen to open the 7 seals.
Because when he was talking to negotiators, I think he was saying like, I have to finish this. I'm going to finish this and then we'll surrender.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
There was a lot of points where They were like, we have to do this, then we promise we'll surrender, and then something else happens, or the FBI screws
wasn't it
themselves
like
over.
it was either I know it was 2 or 3 groups he let. I mean, because he at first he let out a bunch of the kids. I don't think they were his kids because I think that he had like I think he had like
he had like 25 of his own kids.
None of them left, but a bunch of the other kids he let out first, and then some adults left later in the siege at some point. And then did any of his kids leave?
No, none of his kids escaped. Yeah. Whenever the compound was getting destroyed, a woman one of the 9 people that escaped before it was completely destroyed and killed everybody else, she escaped with the unfinished manuscript. And a couple of the religious scholars that read over it said that it wasn't like the ramblings of a madman. Like, you know how somebody that is very insane writes like very unorganized and jumps around places place. Yeah.
They're just
They said that this was very organized and very reasoned. So like I want to know what was on the manuscript just to know.
Yeah.
But either way, it's very interesting.
But you got to think about it too, like because to me because it was like I don't know what it was called, like was it called Jonestown? Well, anyways, but whatever but whatever is like I'm not saying he was, because I think it even said that he told the negotiators they weren't going to do mass suicide. I mean, it could have been lying, but because they did find 2 people with gunshot wounds to the head.
Well, I'm sure if you're burning alive, you'd rather shoot yourself.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. But my thing is like if you're able to, the people that were in there were probably already kind of weak-minded, not weak-minded, like not smart, but they were like easily persuaded people anyways. But either way, to get that many people to follow you and do this kind of weird stuff, you have to be pretty smart and you have to be able to speak well, and then in turn probably write well.
Yeah, you have to be convincing.
Yeah.
And
well, either way, it's still kind of I would still like to read what's in it.
I wonder what happened to it.
Yeah.
I do too.
Like I don't know if you can even,
because the 9 people that escaped from the burning compound were immediately arrested anyway.
Yeah.
So
go figure.
I don't think anybody really even knows what happened to it.
And with that religion that he had wives of like many ages. There were some as young as like 10. He was
it was at least teenagers.
I read somewhere that it was like
they said the youngest,
as young as 10,
I think it says the youngest were between 12 and 13.
Okay. Well, young doesn't really matter when you get down that far.
I mean, and that's my thing is like,
but yeah,
because it said there was possible like abuse and rape and stuff, like statutory rape going on. And my thing is like, because before the raid happened, like in the late 80s and 90s, there was that like his church was they were in court a lot. Like there was one guy that was in it, I don't know his name, and I remember reading this, but he was told by the court to not say he was he wasn't supposed to say he was part of the church anymore and stuff. And then when they went back because there was something to do with, have you read this? It was like something to do with like some guy had died that was in it. And some people had left the church and they came back, and it had something to do with they tried to they dug up the casket with that guy, and there was a court here. There was like a court here, like they were trying to use it as evidence in like in a hearing or something. Well, the judge wouldn't do it, and it was just a big ordeal. This is like a few years before the siege, but like I don't know what it is, but either way, it's weird. It sounds. I mean, he dug up a casket, a dead body, to try to use as. And I'm just like, that's just weird.
This all kind of plays into what they believe. I mean, this is
these are weird people.
This kind of goes to show who these people actually are and what they believe and what they're willing to do, or just will do casually.
There was something to do too with I can't remember. I remember reading it. There was whoever the leader was. I don't know if David Koresh was one of these people or not, but basically, no, this is what it was. The guy who was in charge, these people had left, and this guy was in charge, and he dug up the body. Well, he challenged the guy. I'm thinking it might have been David Koresh to try a resurrection. Like they would both try to do resurrect.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And well, the other guy refused, and then that guy tried to get the casket and the body to use that in court against him because they went to court for it. So he tried to use that in the court case, and they wouldn't. They're like, well, we can't use a freaking casket and the body for evidence. You can't have this in the courtroom. And so I don't. But it's just it just goes to show that these are weird people.
Yeah, but even though they're weird, it doesn't justify anything that happened to him.
Well, and like I was saying, because I was saying earlier, we're talking about like he had like 12 or 13-year-old wives, and my thing, because like when it comes to like polygamy, like I think it's wrong, and like, but also at the same time, you can do. I mean, if they're not, I mean, again, if they're of age and they consent, then it's not your business. But when it comes to like underage, then yeah, you need to go do something. But they didn't go in because of this. They had all this gun stuff going on. They're like, and we'll just use this statutory rape that might have been happening, or the abuse that might have been happening to go in. Either way, even if they knew that this was happening, they all died. They killed them all. So what's the point? Like if you're going in there to save them from abuse, be like, well, congratulations, you're not getting raped anymore, but by God, you're burnt alive.
Yeah, really.
And I hate when it comes to it, like I hate that they use the suspected. They suspected them for stockpiling illegal weapons.
Yeah.
What I was thinking was David Koresh announced that he wanted to have his own gun business.
Well, they did too, because they had
they went to like
they had a gun shop called like Mag Bag.
I thought they just went to like
they did
gun shows. They went to like gun shows
and they just mass bought a whole bunch of guns.
Well, they mass bought and sold.
Yeah.
And there was one of their this is really weird. One of their known Davidians was seen with I think it was an ATF helmet with a bullet hole in it. And yeah.
Jeez.
That guy actually wasn't at the compound that day. The day that the siege happened, he was out actually in a gun show, getting guns and selling guns for the compound. And the whole thing started with guns. Like, the abuse allegations, like brought attention to the Branch Davidians, but really what set it off was that they wanted to sell guns.
Well, see, and I think so. I'm reading here, and it said basically what got the ATF on it was they were notified by a UPS representative. He was concerned about a report by a local driver, and the UPS driver said a package had broken upon delivery to the branch residence, revealing firearms, inert grenade casings, and black powder.
Well,
mind your business, UPS.
On this website, literally. It does need a citation, so that might not be
UPS,
complete.
More like oops. Freaking dropped all my gunpowder and my grenades. Gosh.
Did they ever get their package?
Well,
they didn't even get their package.
Well, talking about that too is like, I hate all this suspected stuff. Because I think like a day or two before the siege, or this is like why they started the siege, was some neighbor said, or somebody near there said that he heard automatic gunfire. And then he said, I'm a veteran. I know what an M16 or a 50 cal sounds like. I'm like, So that warrants a siege.
We're going to take an ad break real quick, and we'll be right back.
If you would like to listen to more episodes, you can check us out on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to the show.
And we're back. So we left off talking about how the ATF was about to commence their initial no-knock raid. Jada, what you were saying stuff about that.
So what I'm reading here, like I said before, it was a local farmer reported to the sheriff that he had heard machine gun fire by this quote by the sound of it. And it was likely, he said it was likely a 50 caliber machine gun and multiple M16s. The farmer claimed he was a very familiar with machine guns, having done a tour overseas in the U.S. Army. Reading further, basically they were waiting on a warrant, and they were trying to get arrest warrants for Koresh and his specific followers on weapons charges, citing the many firearms they had accumulated, citing that they had the many firearms they accumulated. They also said, I think they also used this as a, I mean, they were using a lot. They wanted to go, they were going to go in either way, but I think they were trying to find extra stuff to help get the warrants. But apparently, they claimed that Koresh was possibly operating in a meth lab.
Okay, and that's another thing that I kind of wanted to say. They claim that he was producing drugs, but they claim that so that they could get the tank that they used, because during this time they were going through, like, what was it? Going through the peak of the drug
war on drugs.
Yeah, they were going through the peak of the war on drugs, pretty much. And they used this claim to get a tank against American citizens.
Yeah.
And that is like the most messed up.
Because I mean,
shit.
after the initial firefight, I guess you could call it. At first, it was just the ATF, but then they ended up bringing in the Texas National Guard. I think some Alabama National Guard was there for some reason,
and the FBI.
FBI. And then I saw somewhere too. I don't remember where I saw this, but apparently the sheriff wasn't notified that this was happening. Like they only figured out later that he knew by the time the siege was basically started.
Yeah.
But he didn't know when the raid started.
I mean, they were observing this compound for a while before they actually started the siege.
Apparently, correct. And I thought this was kind of funny, but apparently correct, because there were some people that they lived in a house. They were living in a house across the street. They were there to spy on them, to watch them. Well, Koresh apparently way before the siege happened figured out one of the guys' identities. Well, before the raid happened, I don't know if it's the day of or maybe the day before, he told the guy he was in the compound with him. And he's like, and Koresh basically was just like, yeah, I know who you are. And then the guy had to make an excuse to leave, and then the raid happened.
I also read that somebody in the community told one of the Branch Davidians that the ATF was planning on doing some kind of raid.
Koresh's brother, I think.
Yeah, and the guy that told him didn't know that he was a Branch Davidian. And the guy ran and told Koresh, and they had 45 minutes to prepare.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they asked him something. It was I'm almost positive it's Koresh's brother. And now I don't know. See, I don't know if they call themselves brothers and sisters and stuff, so that might be what it was. But from what I read, it said it was his brother, and then he called him and was like, "Hey,
yeah,
the ATF boys are on the way."
Yeah, and whenever the ATF rolled up and did their freaking no-knock raid, 4 of the agents died, and 6 of the Davidians died too. So,
and what I thought was so funny about that, I mean, death isn't funny. I mean, but what going past that, what I think was funny about it, reading about that when they were trying to get in. I mean, after the first shots are fired, I mean, basically at that point because for one, they don't know who fired first. I was reading a lot of stuff, And of course, the government says they fired first, and then of course, people who are against it said that the ATF fired first. But I've read places that it possibly was a negligent discharge on one of the either sides. Well, then I was reading another thing, and apparently there was a team. I don't think they were called this, but people have dubbed them the dog team, the ATF dog team, and
Makes sense.
yeah, makes sense. But they actually had the job. Their job was to go to the kennel that the branch had and kill their dogs. So they think that they did their job. They went and shot them. The ATF, the people that were about to do the raid, heard the shots, thought it was the branch, and then the branch heard the shots and they thought it was them.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when it all went out. But what I would think was funny was when they were going in, these people were going through the windows. They were trying their hardest to get to the weapons. Like even when the first guy was shot, the ATS first guy was shot, they were still trying to get there. Like, I mean, at that point, you need to like regroup. I mean, all hell's breaking loose at that point, and they're just still trying to be like, oh, I found the weapons. I'm in the weapons. Like, just I don't know, just a lot of unnecessary death.
Oh
at that point, and then 51 days of. We'll get into this later, but also like the stuff like it was borderline torture, and I'm pretty sure if this was in a wartime,
no, it definitely was torture.
It was torture what they did, like because like they would like play like dead stuff dying and
they
stuff.
played really loud music, which is just basically mental.
Yeah,
torture.
They played
they
played something, some kind of animal, like baby rabbits. They were playing baby rabbits being slaughtered, or not baby, just rabbits getting slaughtered.
Dude,
but
have you heard a predator call, like a white or cottontail rabbit predator call? But those are terrifying.
It's terrifying, and they're playing it constantly through the night. I mean, and what excuse do they have for that?
Yeah,
I was looking up on the Geneva Convention, and that's a big no-no.
Yeah, that's
but
a war crime.
It does say for prisoners of war. So I don't necessarily know if
I feel like they were
to the Geneva Convention.
They were basically prisoners. There was no way that they could have been.
They were under siege.
They could have left.
But the thing is, like, well, they're not at war. It's not the Geneva Convention doesn't matter or whatever. Which I don't think that matters. But it's their citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're going against the Geneva Convention on your own people.
And what excuse do they have? It's one of two things: to scare them and to make sure they don't sleep. They were trying to sleep and make them sleep deprived. And if they are crazy, which they were, but if they're as crazy as they were saying they are, do you really think not letting someone sleep for 51 days is a good idea to do it to a crazy person?
And if they had the drugs that you said that they had, no sleep wouldn't have mattered at all.
Yeah.
Well, then after all the 4 died, and
there were like 17 wounded too.
Yeah, 7. Well, they got in a firefight, and I was reading about the firefight, and they shot. I think it was like they were shooting for like 45 minutes or something, and the only reason it stopped, well, it started slowing down when it got closer to an hour, but the reason why was because the ATF was running out of ammo. Like it was, and the thing was like they were. I mean, a lot of the time they were trying. From what I've been seeing, the branch was possibly trying. They said that they were possibly trying to stop firing or like get the situation under control, but the ATF basically fired all their ammo.
Yeah,
they weren't going to stop at that point. They were firing until they ran out of ammo.
Yeah, and they're very reckless. Like if you look at videos at some of the ATF guys firing on the houses, I mean, they're very reckless. They're just popping up behind cars and not even aiming, but just unloading. They're not like trying to conserve ammunition, like you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, they're just spraying and praying right there.
Yeah, and then
I don't know if that's suppressive fire or not, but
back to it.
You can't really suppress something that's not moving up on anything.
I mean, if you're in a war situation, this isn't it. It's their fault. It's happening.
Yeah,
for the most part.
That's kind of what I feel like they went there to do anyway.
I mean,
I feel like they were gonna kill him either way.
I mean, no matter what you're thinking, what your thought process is, maybe they didn't go in to kill. They weren't. Maybe when they first got there, they're like, "Well, let's hope we don't have to kill them."
Yeah,
But they were there ready to kill them.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that wasn't their original plan to possibly kill them all, but they did. So they got what they wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, they got what they wanted. What they wanted was either to capture them all and charge them, or have to kill them all, because they weren't going to let them get away, or they weren't going to just let them stay there at that point. So now all they have to do is like, oh, we killed them all. The country's a little up in arms about it, but we'll just fire a few people and we'll be like, oh, we're sorry, or not even say we're sorry. And what I back to the shooting stuff, like. They're going there because they possibly have automatic weapons while they're shooting at them with fully automatic weapons.
Yeah, literally.
I hate that.
You're dangerous.
Your automatic weapon is dangerous. Here, let me shoot you with my automatic weapon.
Literally.
Well,
government philosophy right there.
I think what I've seen before is not where it all fell apart, but I mean, it was doomed from the beginning. I think, but where it really fell apart was the negotiations between the government that was attacking them and the Davidians. There were so many negotiations that didn't line up with each other, in the sense that they were multiple government entities trying to negotiate different things with different Davidians. I'm pretty sure the different Davidians. Or maybe even the same one, but really there was too many different negotiations going on to even get a clear line of what was wanted from either side. Because what I've seen is that the FBI was like kind of laid back, trying to get everyone to
they were laid back at first.
Yeah, and this is kind of at first, was that they were laid back and trying to just get people to talk, see what they wanted, see what was gonna happen, basically. And they were approaching it very cautiously. While I can't remember the other group. Was it the ATF? Did the ATF? Were they in there through the whole 51 days?
The FBI and the ATF were there the whole time, because the ATF, I bet they had to stay there because of the initial initial killing of their agents.
And that's the thing too, is I think that the ATF had, or it might have been the ATF that had such aggressive negotiations. They were the one that pushed the loud music, the loud animal cries, the loud noises that tried to keep them awake. And it was this conflict of interest from the government side. I mean, imagine you're in the Davidian side when they're like, hey, we just want to talk, but they're blasting music and blasting sounds in your ear. And you don't know what to believe at that point.
Yeah.
Because they're saying one thing and doing another. But it isn't the same controlling body that's doing both of those things. There wasn't some kind of centralized command that there should have been.
Well,
there wasn't.
Well, on day one, the ATF and the FBI worked together.
Numero uno.
Literally. But the FBI came in after the initial firefight was over, and they actually got negotiations done where two children actually were released every time Koresh's message was played over the No, it wasn't national. It was just like local.
I think it was local. Yeah, it was like Channel 10 news kind of thing.
I think he tried to end up getting it go national,
and it was at one point. But his message was that God had given him the ability to unlock the 7 seals and start the apocalypse. That was the message that he wanted sent out to people. I don't know why, but that's what he wanted. And every time that it was played, 2 children were released. And
the government, to the public's eye, the government was like, when the government approached PR and just like with the American public, they were trying to make it about the kids. They were like, we want to save the kids.
Yeah.
We are in it to save the kids. Yet the first thing the ATF did was send in smoke bombs and sending, was it tear gas
It
and
was
stuff?
tear gas. That
And
wasn't the first thing. That
well-
was the last.
well,
oh,
the,
really? Okay.
That was the very
Scratch
last
that
thing.
then.
Well, the negotiators log, apparently there's a log with everything they said. Well, it showed that when the tape was reviewed, they were concerned that the tapes released would to the media would gain sympathy for Koresh and the branch. So they kept the negotiation tapes out of the public eye while it's happening, so they wouldn't get people to be like, well, maybe you should just leave them alone.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
another thing. David Koresh actually made a video of him, his wives, and his children together in the compound, and he gave it to the FBI,
He would
but the
go around-
FBI
Yeah.
didn't release it because they thought it would give him too much sympathy, and and people would side with them.
Also, I'm reading here that apparently, I don't know who they changed the tactical commander on the field at some point. Well, apparently there's basically two sides to the siege happening. The negotiators they said they would start gaining ground negotiating, and then they do something.
Yeah.
So
I think that was the whole time, wasn't it? I mean, that was just
it says the final Justice Department report found that negotiators criticized the tactical commanders for undercutting negotiations multiple times.
Yeah. Day 2 was when the FBI took lead on the standoff. That was day 2. Like they were already like, man, the ATF sucks. They can't do this.
Yeah.
But the ATF was still there.
I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, this is, I mean, no matter what they did, this was gaining national news coverage. And you think Ruby Ridge had already happened.
Ruby Ridge happened literally 1 year ago.
So the ATF is deservingly not in the best light right now. I mean, they're not in the best light ever.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, in 1993, a year prior, they killed some people out in the middle of the woods.
That might be why they pushed so hard, though, is that, I mean, they were trying to prove themselves as a legitimate kind of agency in a way. Hey, we can actually make drug and gun busts and not cause a whole bunch of deaths and not cause unnecessary destruction to private property. And you see how that worked out for him.
You were saying something about Koresh's message going national. Yeah, they negotiated that on day 2, and it played on day 3 for like 57 minutes, over almost an hour. It was playing on a Christian broadcasting network all across the nation.
Jeez.
And the Davidinians said that they would surrender after that happened, but after it was played, Koresh changed his mind and said that God told him to wait before surrendering. I think that's when like the FBI was like, okay, screw this. Let's just speed this up.
This is kind of going back. I just found this. Apparently, this in 1992, July 30th, there was apparently reports of automatic fire coming from the Carmel compound, which is where they were. Well, so there's a ATF agent, David Aguilera, and another agent named Skinner something. They visited the Branch Davidians gun dealer, Henry McMahon, and he tried to get them to talk with Koresh, and eventually they got to be able to talk with Koresh, and David Koresh offered the ATF offered to let the ATF inspect the Branch Davidians' weapons and paperwork, and asked to speak with Aguilera, and Aguilera declined to inspect or talk to him. So they asked to talk to him. He allowed them to. He talked to him, and then he's like, "Well, you can come look at our guns, and I have the papers," and he wouldn't.
Yeah, that's messed up.
I mean, he literally did what he wanted.
Yeah,
and I don't know, but I'm sure there were some. I don't think they're illegal guns, but by their logic, there were probably illegal guns
at
there.
the time, at the
Yeah.
law.
There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
illegal
yeah.
guns there, and I mean, yeah, they probably wouldn't hit them. But
Well, what I think is funny though is that those ATF agents that raided the roofs and stuff, and just the raiding teams had what was it MP5s? I think they were kitted
I
out with
don't know.
MP5s. But
Probably.
I mean, they're sub guns. But after everything went down, they claimed that it got so out of hand basically because they were uh, out armed, which I think is hilarious. Like the government says that
Yeah.
when the local police, state police, national guards, and military was out there. Tanks were out there
Yeah.
poking holes in the side of this building, and I mean, they're like, "Oh, we were out armed," and I was like,
my
"Okay,
ass.
like you can only be so out armed. I understand that
Mhm.
there's like ballistics calculations that I don't do on a regular basis, so I don't know how well like a 9 mil goes through a wall or whatever. But if you have anything bigger than that, it's going to go through a wall. It's going to hit somebody on the other side. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what caliber you have, as long as it goes through the wall, I feel like can hurt somebody.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. There's only so many like lines that I would draw on like this is the deadliest weapon ever.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like to a certain extent, any weapon is just as deadly as almost any other weapon in the hands of a capable person.
Exactly.
So why is it that you have a tank and somehow you're still trying to claim that you're out armed? Yeah.
Yeah. And after the first time that Koresh refused to surrender, the tank was like all the tanks were ordered to close in even more around the
well, they had already
compound.
destroyed all like the fencing around it and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
they were stuck inside. They couldn't go outside at all.
And they claimed it was like this big armored compound when it was pretty much just a house. I mean, it was
a big house.
It was a huge
still.
house.
Well,
it was a compound.
Yeah.
I mean, but they had hay bales lining the windows. They had, I mean, it wasn't like they had iron gates, clashing together to shut the ATF out. It was wooden doors.
I mean, they were all. I mean, there's a lot of people living there. Well, because apparently they started moving there and living there because I think sometime in the 90s before this, they started moving there in like camper. They would have like tents and stuff because that's where they were going to. They thought the apocalypse. That was another point I forgot to make. They were all there because they thought the end of the world was coming. Well, so all these people believe that they're the people who are supposed to stand in the way or fight when the apocalypse happens, and then you're gonna come in there and fight them.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, they're already convinced by their leader, so all their leader has to do is like, bro, this is it. And they're like, oh fuck.
Well, and that's that's the thing
go.
in their world and their mind. When
This
you're
is
living in a compound for I don't know how many years they were in the compound.
They were in there for quite a while.
But
when you submerge yourself in a situation like that where it's so such extreme ideologies coming at you, and you're submerged in that for years on end, what else are you going to believe? Because that's all you hear every day, 24 hours a day.
I mean,
Your leader says the apocalypse is going to happen. The
Like,
ATF knocks on your door and starts firing guns at you. What do you think is going to like? I mean, if that isn't an end of the world situation, and that to them, I don't know what is.
And then it escalated so much worse. Even like just day after day, it got worse and worse for both sides.
Yeah.
Day 6 was the last day that a child was released.
Really?
Day 6.
How many children did they?
21. 21 children were released over a course of 6 days. And after that, it was a 9-year-old girl was the last child to be released.
Right.
And after that, Koresh himself said that now you are dealing with my biological children. None of them leave my compound.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had 25 biological children in his compound with him. They all died. because basically the government decided that this needed to end.
What the I don't know, Attorney General of Texas, didn't she? It was a chick, and she's the one who was like, "Okay, go. You have
Janet Reno.
Yeah,
Janet Reno was the one that
she's the one who basically was like, "All right,
gave the green light."
Yeah, but this was okay. I wanna say this. This was proposed like day 12.
What tear gas?
Tear gas, and it was refused. It was denied by Washington. So it's not like they were like, okay, day 12, we're done with this. Let's go. No, they still tried to do it like with negotiation and everything, but like
again, negotiations were off the wall from the beginning.
All the way around.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna have to take another ad break real quick, so we'll be right.
Hey guys, if you would like to reach out to the Panther Den crew, you can email us at thepantherdenpod@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at either statismc or at jdub_1776. Now back to the show.
And we're back. So we left off with how shitty the negotiation was, and I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit more of what was actually negotiated. So day 8 marks when the government wasn't like a complete and utter asshole. This was the day that the FBI approved milk to be sent into the remaining children so that they didn't go hungry or thirsty, and milk for little kids and babies.
A little over a month later, they burn them all alive.
Yeah, they're bacon.
Hope you like that milk.
Yeah. This makes up for it, right?
But another negotiation was on like day 20 to 22. A negotiation was made for 8 women and 2 men to be released, because I guess they just didn't want any more part of it. And I mean, I understand if there's freaking federal agents outside my house and they've been there for 20 plus days, I'd have enough of it too.
Well, and they had like a choice the whole time, didn't they? They had a choice to almost like anyone had a choice to surrender and come out of the compound, and I mean they would be arrested or whatever.
Yeah, but there was no guarantee that they wouldn't shoot them,
right,
or that they wouldn't immediately arrest them and charge them for something that they didn't even have anything to do with.
Right. And I'm not saying that isn't part of the equation. All I'm saying is that they had a choice to stay in and kind of deal with the consequences later, or kind of face it now, face the music now. And also, but I was watching a video with a guy that was like an actual survivor. From what I picked up, he was basically in it for David. I mean, he was in it, and he believed what David had to say, and like that's the whole reason why he stayed. He wasn't like, I guess it wasn't a choice of, will the ATF like charge me or not. It was more of, how will David look at me? I'll stay with David. David's the protector kind of thing.
Yeah, and after like as much time as they've spent with David and as much teaching that they gained from him, they would have believed him more than the government.
I mean, they're letting their wives bang them. So I mean,
well, you got to trust a dude pretty hard for that to happen.
I don't know if any of the other members were actually married or not, because I don't know if David would have allowed that, really.
Yeah, well, they might have been married before.
Yeah,
but either way, I mean, they're submerged in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're
24/7.
Yeah. So
for years.
Yeah, who are you going to believe? A guy you see every day, who you can touch, and he's there, he's right around the compound corner, or some government agency that's going to shoot tear gas into your windows and hurt your children and feed them milk right before they light the fire.
Okay, so I just was reading some more stuff, and this was the original 19 children that they released.
Like the day up to the day 6 thing. Is that right, Jacob?
I don't know what day.
Day 6 was the last day that.
Right.
Okay, so 19 kids. So this is so these 19 kids ranged from 5 months old to 12 years old. Well, and they didn't come out with their parents, and and so it says here that the children were taken by FBI and Texas Rangers, and they were apparently interviewed hours at a time, like 2 to 3 hours. And now this is allegedly on this website. It says allegedly. Okay, so going before I say this, going back, they kept stuff from the public, so they wouldn't. So that they're set. I mean, that's lying. Yeah, they're not saying that they didn't say this. They're just not allowing it to be said. But then it says allegedly the children that they got had been physically and sexually abused long before the standoff. That's what they say. Now, these are the same people that wouldn't release stuff that would give the branch sympathy. So is it bad to assume that the people who wouldn't release something would release something else? Because then it says that was the justification offered to Bill Clinton and Attorney General Jeanette Reno for launching the tear gas attacks. So I mean, so this happened way back then, and then they're like, well, it's been 51 days. These kids here, rest of the world, these kids are being sexually assaulted. We need to tear gas them.
I don't know why they'd pull the trigger that much later, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because all these kids, especially if they were interviewed, so I mean, if they were released on day 6 and it didn't happen until day 51, interviews and decision. I mean, it's government, so it all happens pretty dang slow. But I mean, I feel like if they were in a real crisis mode, that stuff would happen a little faster than 51 days. Or
I mean, imagining interviewing a 5-month.
Yeah.
A 5-month-old baby.
Well, it says after these ones were released, it said there was a video. The FBI sent a video camera to Koresh, and in the video, I don't know what day this would have been on, but the video. So Koresh introduced his children, all of his children, and his wives, and let them talk to the negotiators, and then several minors were also on the video, and a ton of men and women were all a lot of them were on the video just talking with the negotiators. And the branch Davidson sent out the videotape to show the FBI that there were no hostages, but everyone was staying inside on their own free will. The video also included a message from Koresh. I don't know what the message was, but I mean, at that point, it's like you can't justify the I mean, I know they're minors, but you can't. I mean, they're all there on their free will. They're not like, if he's willing to show all the kids that are still in there. I mean, whether or not they're definitely brainwashed, but I don't know if they're. I mean, who's to say they're? I mean, when the government says allegedly they were getting sexually assaulted and abused, then to me that gives me just as much ammo to say, well, allegedly they weren't.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's just who says who, and just because you're the government doesn't make you automatically right.
Yeah. Well, they were brainwashed, just not government approved brainwashed, and that's what they had the problem with.
MK Ultra.
Callback. And I think that was the video that I was talking about earlier. And they never released that.
Yeah.
They never released it to the public because it would gain too much sympathy.
Yeah.
For their opposing.
It's all about their PR with the public, and I don't know. There's so many truths to it.
It's like you go back to war. I mean,
well, yeah.
Like you're gonna have propaganda out because like that famous picture over that Russian over in Berlin holding the Soviet flag up. The original picture, he has all kinds of he has a bunch of watches on both wrists. Well, in the picture that you most of the time see, he only has one watch on. They edited that because they were looting and they didn't want the world to know that Russia was or the Soviets were looting Berlin.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they want these people because they quote broke the law with the guns. So they're not going to give them any. They're going to take them off the grid and not let them show their side. They
Mhm.
need they need what they have their story, and they're going to stick to it whether or not it's false, so they can get what they want done.
And they're going to promote it as the truth, whether it is or not. And then the Davidians are going to come out with their truth, and then there's going to be an objective truth that no one's going to actually know.
Yeah, not if they're dead, though. You know.
Well, yeah, for sure.
But during the whole thing, they're doing all this, and they're doing it in their way. They're doing it their way, only their way, and they're torturing these kids, these adults, and everybody in there with loud music and
Dying
rabbits. And on day 10, they actually shut off the electricity. They cut off electricity to the compound.
Didn't they do something to like their water tanks too? They had water tanks on the top. They did something to them.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well,
honestly.
I mean, but if they're pumps, I mean, if electricity goes out,
yeah.
If it's gravity fed, then
I don't know.
Yeah,
but either way,
I remember seeing something about something to do with water pumps, but I don't remember.
Either way, on day 10, it was turned out. It was the electricity was cut off, but that day it was temporarily. It was turned back on due to an actual successful negotiation. But then, like 3 days later, it was turned off permanently.
See, the government was just turning the lights back on, just the old-fashioned way. And day 51.
But this was all their plan to just irritate the Davidians so that they would give up. And that day 13 was the day that they started the loud music and started the dying rabbit sounds and all the psychological torture that is, again, against the Geneva Convention being used on their own citizens.
So the whole bureaucratic system that kind of slowed everything down in order for everything to kind of catch up to, hey, the kids are being molested. There are pedophiles in there. We need to save the kids, even though they're in there on their own will, they claim. And that's what really led up to the whole day 51.
Well, there's a lot more stuff that happens from like day 20 to 51.
Yeah.
There was another time that the Davidians said that they would give themselves up, and that was after Passover. And this was on day 36. After Passover, they would give themselves up. They promised that they would give themselves up, but they needed a minimum of an 8-day grace period. A day before the 8 days was up. That time, they proposed the tear gas plan again. And this is where Janet Reno approved it. The Attorney General approved it.
She was for it before it really happened, like a week before it really happened.
Yeah, literally.
She was itching.
Yeah.
Do it. She was wanting it to get over.
It. Skin that smoke wagon.
I like it when they play hard.
Gosh. But on day 50, it was signed and approved by none other than Bill Clinton. Literally killing more people. So
dude, he was probably in the couch in the White House getting a blowy, just signing everything.
Oh my gosh.
Just like, I do it.
Honestly, I
Tear
was thinking
gas.
that, but I didn't know if I wanted to say it, but I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Tear gas, yeah, I do it. I don't care.
Tear gas.
Get out.
No, she ain't crying.
Anyways, it was approved by Bill Clinton, and the specific gas that was used was CS gas. That's just a type of tear gas. But either way, approved by our own president to use it against his own citizens that he is appointed to protect. And from the beginning, the Davidians, before the initial no-knock raid, they weren't hurting anyone. There was no... They were on their own, doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Sure, they were freaking weird, but...
And they were stockpiling weapons. I mean,
but
it wasn't... They weren't hurting anyone.
They were stockpiling weapons because they were wanting to make their own gun business. And that's our American right.
Yeah.
You can have as many weapons as you want.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter why.
Yeah, it doesn't matter why.
I also like to point out how funny it is that it's the FBI HRT, the hostage rescue team, are the ones who delivered the rounds, like the gas canister rounds, and fired them.
Yeah.
Rescue.
And I think that's funny too.
Congratulations.
Hostage rescue when nobody was really a hostage besides everyone in the facility.
Congratulations, you're being rescued. Do not resist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Day 51. That was the end of it. That was the very end. April 19th, 1993. That was when 25 children were burned alive and almost 80 people in total were killed, burnt to death. And like you said earlier, some of them committed suicide because they didn't want to burn to death. They knew that there was no way out.
There were autopsies done to kind of prove that too. I
mean, and I read somewhere that those deaths were counted as suicide, so they didn't even like make it into the final death count of the fire. So that's even more messed up.
Imagine if everyone did that. They were like, no fatalities.
Literally.
Like,
until 1999, they denied that there was any gas canisters thrown in there.
Really?
Till 1999. 6 years.
Oh, yeah. But how many found out it was 400.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many were actually thrown in there? And it was
400 gas canisters of tear gas was
the American
thrown
people.
In there.
We were going over our paperwork. Turns out it wasn't none. It was actually 400.
Yeah, I missed a 4 and a 0 in front of the other 0. Yeah. And
my bad, miscalculation,
Misinput.
It's a misinput. Calm down. American people, calm down. That's something huge to hide, though. I mean, that just shows you how modern day, especially like modern day anything, even back then, you can't really trust what you see on the media. And I mean, and I hate to say that because I feel like I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist, going out there, oh, you can't trust the media. But I mean, honestly, when they show stuff like this and say that the FBI is in there to save the children, and then they kill 25 children and nobody comes out of there besides 9 adults on their own free will, probably because they were scared shitless.
Well,
and
9 other adults escaped the fire before they were killed,
right?
But immediately were arrested,
right.
And 10 of them were negotiated to be set free. But either way, it's just like it's screwed up. It's all messed up.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing is that they hide this stuff, thinking that releasing it later. I mean, and it's kind of proven that it does have less of an effect.
Yeah,
releasing it 75 years down the road.
And I bet that they didn't. I can almost guarantee you they didn't release it because out of the goodness of their hearts, somebody pushed. Somebody in the government, somebody maybe figured it out somehow, and they're like, "No, dude, you need to say this." Like they're not going like, "We just found this out." No, they knew. They just were hiding it, and they're not going to go like, "Well, we need to do the right thing and tell the people." No, someone's just like, "Here, I'm gonna either tell them or I'll tell them," and then that's when it happens. And they're like, "Oh, sorry."
Then they set people up for failure. But we'll get to that. Yeah. And Jacob, go ahead.
In 2000. Some of the surviving Davidians were tried for the initial reason that they entered the compound, and some of them were found guilty and sentenced to jail time. Imagine going through all that, still being tried and accused without any proof. Like they didn't have any
burnt
proof.
down all the proof.
Yeah. You burnt down all the proof. All this is alleged.
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, they have the gun remnants, but they don't have the paperwork to go with it. You know why? Because it burnt.
Yeah, paper burns better than guns. Who knew?
Yeah.
But the 51st day, before they even threw in the gas canisters, they did warn them that they were going to tear gas the place. The FBI and the ATF warned the Davidians that they were going to tear gas them.
During it, they also I think they were don't. I mean, they had to do that anyways, but they were also said like, don't shoot. There's not gonna be an armed assault. So when you come out, don't be firing. So they're basically saying that to save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
because maybe not all, like let's say that the Davidians shot first the first day. Let's say they shot first, but I bet you all of them didn't know. Maybe the ones who did shoot first, they knew, but I'm sure not all of them knew. Their people were probably telling them they shot at us first. So now they're tear gassing us and making us come out. How do we know they're not going to shoot us again? I mean, I don't.
After all that's gone on, how could you trust the other side?
I'd like to think that they wouldn't shoot them, but I mean, how do they know that? They're literally being besieged, starving, getting going crazy, haven't had any sleep, and they're like, okay, we're gonna tear gas you. That's already scary. You better come out, and they don't know what's gonna happen. And now there's a fire. I don't know.
Yeah, and somewhere I read that one of the tanks that they had to throw all that tear gas in there, they crashed one of the. Well, they didn't crash, but they ran one of the tanks into the compound to make a giant hole, and they threw, again, 400 canisters of tear gas. You know how much gas that would produce? That would produce way more than enough.
You
want to be upwind of that.
Like, I know it's outside, but like you look at the BLM riots, like whenever like there would have to be like tear gas thrown. I mean, they throw like one or two cans, and that was a lot of gas.
Oh, that was a ton
of gas. I bet you these suckers were bigger, and there's 400 of them in a building.
This was non-regulated. This wasn't nearly well regulated back then. This is the 90s tear gas. This is the good stuff.
It's just crazy to me that they would do this to their own people.
They poked holes in the side because, like I kind of mentioned before, they were barricading the windows, barricading the entrances, the major entrances that they could try and throw the tear gas through with hay bales and whatever else they had. And then they resorted to poking holes in the building with a tank.
Poking a tank into the building.
They warned them, there's not going to be an armed assault. We're going to tear gas you. Okay, well, I guess, at least it's not an armed assault. Oh, wait, there's an effing tank.
Yeah.
Like, what are they supposed to think?
Yeah.
Literally.
Like, when I see a tank, I think tank things, not tear gas.
Oh, that isn't armed.
Yeah. Good thing that's not loaded with a
they don't know who started the fire. Well, they think they don't know who started the fire.
Yeah.
I 100% guarantee it was those 400 tear gas canisters that started a fire.
I don't think they deliberately started the fire.
Yeah, I don't think they meant to, but it ultimately happened.
But I think that's the reason why they try. I'm reading all this stuff. They keep like, it's so funny because they have like the place bugged, and you can hear, like, you can read some stuff of what some of them were saying during the time.
Right.
Well, whenever it has something to do with fire, it, like, most of this stuff is quotes, like at 6:12 on the 51st day, the surveillance tapes record one of them saying they're going to kill us all, and another one replying they don't want to kill us. They don't want to kill us. Well, and so they know that's said. Well, then just a few hours later, when the fires are going on, they say that allegedly they say that they're going to start the fires, or is there enough fuel to start that fire?
Yeah.
Why is that alleged?
Well,
like the
Davidians said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Right. So they know that the Davidians said that they're going to kill us all. So that's fact. But then down here where they're talking about starting fires and stuff, that's alleged. So you either have it or you don't. You can't say that they said something if there's no recording, or you have the recording and they don't say it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what kind of makes me mad. Is like, oh, they definitely said that they were molesting children, but I don't actually know.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah.
It's all allegedly. During the fire, they said there was reports that there were gunshots, and at the end there was an explosion that blew the roof off the entire compound and ultimately leveled the whole thing. But what I think happened too that amplified the fire was the room that this is what I think. This is not proven 100%, but what I think happened is the tank rammed into the place where they kept all the weapons and all the gunpowder and all the stuff that they used to reload ammo. He rammed into that. They all chucked in the 400 canisters of tear gas. Some kind of it got too hot.
They have to have an ignition, the tear gas.
Yeah, it got too hot because of that initial ignition. Some of the either gunpowder or something else went off in there, and it just everything went up. Because if you have like a bottle of gunpowder and even like the smallest spark, like it's going up in flames, it's exploding, something's catching on fire, somebody's losing an arm.
That's like a video of the AK guy. He has a video where he's going over like gun incidents or something. Well, this guy has this little like model cannon, like it's like pretty small, like, and it's a black powder thing. It's just supposed to shoot little like BBs out. Well, he has the can of black powder way back there, and when he shoots it, the thing goes off, and there's some smoke. I don't see any sparks, and then next thing you know, the thing that's a few feet away just blows up.
Yeah, it explodes. And that's what I think another one of the explosions were that blew the roof off. And after everything was said and done, that whole compound was leveled.
Dunzo.
What's crazy to me is how far and how much you have to dig to find some of that footage, because there's local and national news there, and you can't tell me that they weren't filming during at least all daylight hours.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's going down at any time, and I have a hard time believing that they weren't filming all of it, and yet you have to dig so far to get some of that footage. It's weird to me. Another kind of cover up.
So we're hitting the 30-minute mark again, so we're going to have to take another ad break real quick. We'll be right.
Hey guys, it's J-Dub. Be sure to check out mine or Cameron's TikToks, JDub_1776, and Dr. Fauci is a cuck. Now back to the show.
And we're back. So Jada was telling me about something that he wanted to say during the break. So go ahead, Jada.
So I'm not. This is just kind of like stirring the pot a little bit. But I'm looking. So there's a log that I have of the order of events that happened on the last day, and I was reading, and it kind of got me a little. I thought this was a little weird. So at 12:22, this is after the fire has started. It's not very big yet, but there are flames spotted. And so at 12:22, Waco fire trucks arrive at a checkpoint, and they're halted, and they weren't allowed to pass until they didn't pass the checkpoint until 12:37. And so then at 12:25, there's a large explosion on the left side of the compound. One object hurtles into the air, bounces off the top of a bus, and lands on the grass. Then at 12:30, part of the roof collapses, and around this time there are several further explosions, and witnesses report the sound of gunfire. Well, and then at 12:43, according to the Waco Fire Department logs, the fire trucks arrive on the compound. So I'm not necessarily saying this is all connected, but what are the chances that in this short period of time these explosions happen and these fire trucks that are supposed to be putting out the fire possibly are halted, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this goes back to like the explosions. I mean, that just shows me that especially the little explosions after the big one. I mean, that has to be the gunpowder.
Yeah, and I think the gunfire
It's
that was
just bullets going off.
Yeah, was the extra rounds that hadn't been shot
So
going off because of the fire.
I bet what happened was, I mean, I'm agreeing. I'm going to agree with Jacob. I think that they either ran into right where the guns were or where some guns were and ammunition, black powder. And I don't think all 400 went into the same hole. I'm sure they went to different windows and stuff. So, I mean, if they hit it in the right spot, the ignition's going to light something.
Yeah, it only really takes one with enough fuel.
And out of 400, that's a lot of chances.
Yeah.
So I think the big explosion, there's already a fire going. That fire gets somewhere, and then these canisters had caused the fire. The fire got to the right spot, big explosion, and now there's more little explosions and then extra rounds going off, and that's the gunfire they hear.
Yeah, and I could see it being pre-planned too, because I mean they were gathering data on the Davidians for a while. I mean, they had
to know like they probably had guns everywhere, but I bet you they had a good idea of where they had most of the stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean I feel like and Jacob kind of.
I mean, one of them was in it. Like we were saying earlier, that guy that left.
They had insiders.
He was in the compound.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I could totally see it. I don't know if that's fact, but I could definitely see that as a possibility of them targeting that specific area in order to cause a massive explosion and just kind of get it over with in a sense.
I want to go back to like the tank part. They got that tank through lying. Like they lied about them making drugs. They never got any proof of that. They actually had proof that they had guns, but not fully automatic ones. The only reason that they had proof that they had guns was because they were in a firefight with them. And I got a quote here that talks about how they got the armored vehicle. So David Bice says that, quote, legal justification to use armored vehicles against civilians was obtained under the war on drugs by claiming that Koresh was manufacturing drugs, end quote. That's just
claiming.
Yeah. They didn't even prove it. They just claimed it, and they were like, okay, you can have some tanks, you know.
Yeah, I want to see the evidence that backs that up. I want to see the backing of the claim before.
Before I give you tanks to use on your own citizens.
I mean, at that point, if you want, I mean, the government wants anyone. All the government would have to do is say they want somebody gone for some reason. That person in that house is a conspiracy theorist and he's crazy. He also probably, most likely, maybe not, has a meth lab in his basement. Here, have a tank, run over his house, kill him. Good job.
Literally.
That's what it kind of came down to.
And whenever they label him as like a conspiracy theorist or a white supremacist, they automatically lose all credibility in what they have to say. So nobody's going to listen to them. Nobody's going to hear him.
If that's your first argument, you don't have one.
That's pretty clickbaity nowadays.
Okay, sorry, we're back. We had some technical difficulties. So we left off with like how they got the armored vehicles and why it was just retarded how they got them. All in all, this whole event was completely unnecessary and could have been 100% avoided if the ATF didn't show up with weapons, didn't show any aggression, and actually had a warrant. They didn't even have a approved warrant yet.
Even if they did, it would have still been a no-knock thing, which I am 100% against the no-knocks. I hate them. I mean, even today, the no-knock stuff is. I mean, you see all this stuff going wrong. Like, I'm not defending the people who get no-knock rated, but
there's a lot more that can go down. Like,
yeah,
somebody answers the door, or I mean, even looks. Okay, so I would say in a knocking raid, everyone's still stationed around, still looking at the area of interest and in the surrounding area, and they knock. If the person sees them, knows that they're the ATF because they'll probably have a big yellow ATF vest on, and tries to leave, that they're still.
We're just telling you the facts right here, and you, the listener, need to come to your own conclusion about what you think should have happened and what you think about the ATF. Because we're going to do more episodes on mistakes the ATF has made.
ATF failures. Love it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them.
ATF fail compilation.
Podcast edition. But all in all, it was something that could have been avoided. It was something that could have saved almost 80 lives. And
I really think that the government is definitely the instigators and the ones to blame for starting the whole thing, especially not handling it in the way they should have. Because I feel like if they would have handled it any sort of degree better, that not nearly as many people would have died. It would have been solved quicker. And I just think they dug themselves into a hole that they didn't know their way out of, and then they started just trying to do random things. Not random things, but they were just dire, and they couldn't just pull out.
Yeah,
because they can't just pull out because the whole nation's watching you. What are you gonna do? Some guy in a compound is fighting against you right now, and you're letting him win, and you're just gonna walk away. That's what I would say. And honestly, that's what the federal government's like. We can't have them saying that, so let's just
look weak.
Let's just light the place on fire. Like
say they did it.
And I just think that's how it all went down. Is like they dug themselves into a hole on maybe day or into like week 2 maybe. And then they were like, I don't know what the next step is. The negotiators were shit, and it all just went downhill.
I don't even know if I'd say the negotiators were shit. I think some of them were, but I think some of the negotiators were actually like they would gain something, and then these people would be like, we'll do something else. And
from what I heard and read, and what I kind of said before, that there were too many negotiators. There wasn't one stream of negotiation. There were multiple streams saying different things and trying different methods. And that would drive me crazy, having 30 people talking my ear off on, hey, let's not do anything irrational, let's not do anything rash.
Meanwhile,
let's just
there's
come out of the compound.
Distinct rabbit dead noises in the background.
Gunshots fired in the back, and in the front there's rabbits being murdered via a speaker.
Hey, we'll give you milk.
Yeah, we got milk. We have pancake breakfast on Sunday if you guys want to come out. I think I read this or saw this is that they were trying to like say, oh, we didn't kill them, they killed them, and oh, we aren't responsible for those deaths. The ATF, they were trying to shove the death tolls onto other agencies and
I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean
they tried
I don't know that for sure, but I feel like that's I again not something out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean they tried to hide that they threw in 400 canisters of tear gas.
Yeah,
so I feel like they would also try and hide that they killed a few more children. So
yeah.
And who knows? They could have killed more. It might have just been lost in all that blaming. Anyway.
Yeah.
We'll do closing statements right now. So I think you, the listener, need to just look more into things like this. Don't take one side of the story and go with it. Take both sides. Look into both sides. Don't just read the first Wikipedia page that comes up on Google. Look for it. Look for answers. Look for why this happened and how this started. Look for answers. Don't just take somebody's word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan?
I would say do that, and look on both sides.
That's what I said.
Look on both sides of everything, because one side, definitely going to hide the other. And again, I think I kind of summed it up before. It was just, it could have been handled a lot better from the beginning. And this is a major reason why the FBI and ATF need to get organized. This is where leadership is. That is a perfect example of where leadership, there was no true leadership, and it just kind of fell through the cracks. And I feel like nobody was. It was just a shit show the entire time, and nobody really knew what was going on, from what I've seen. And then it happened, and then that was it. And then where do you go from there besides downhill?
So so let me ask this: what's the total number that died?
Okay, so the total numbers of death was 82 Davidians that were died, including the 25 children that were burned alive, and the 6 initial deaths on the first day.
So is that 8? So that's 82.
That's 82 of just Davidians, and then
so that's 6 is included with that.
The 6 that on the initial day was included with that, and there were only like 4 ATF agents
Okay,
with
so
17 wounded,
Okay.
but
Okay.
86 deaths overall.
So overall, at the end of the day, 86 people died. And I'm not on either side really, but I'd have to lean more towards. I'm not leaning towards the Davidians, but I'm leaning more towards
against the ATF.
Against the government.
Yeah.
ATF. But at the end of the day, the 82 of these people that were probably getting brainwashed died needlessly. 4 ATF agents that definitely had families were killed, and just following orders. I mean, maybe they might not have agreed with it or not. I don't know. But either way, at the end of the day, 86 people died. And in my eyes, and I think the overwhelming majority of people would conclude that it was unjustified and didn't need to happen the way it happened. I mean, like you said, the government, I think it was going to happen either way. And then when it started, it was going to end. And I think they screwed up, and I think they could have gotten to a more peaceful end. But either way, it was going to end. And unfortunately, it ended bad.
I think that kind of sums up what we're all thinking.